How are the kids and families who have had school refusal dealing with this? I mean, how does it feel to them? Have you heard any feedback?
Well, I think that it's a real challenge, and this is where I think I want to emphasize some of the recommendations that others have been floating around the internet and news as well, which is that, on one hand, I think families might consider this a blessing in disguise, or a blessing, because anyone who struggles daily with school attendance problems, both for the kid and the caregiver, any sort of a break, they're like, oh my goodness, thank goodness that I just get a break from this.
Yes.
And suddenly conflict in the household goes down, struggles go down, and things feel peaceful. And it's such a relief at first. And what I want to just kind of emphasize, and this goes for both typical kids or kids without school refusal history, as well as kids with a school refusal history, is that routines are so critical during this time. And I would say even more so for the kid with school attendance problems, because we know that kids with any sort of attendance problems, when they return, from even a weekend, it's harder for them to regain the same kind of movement. And so it's critical for them to stay moving, and certainly any holidays or breaks present a challenge. And so what we want to make sure we do is emphasize maintaining routines. What a colleague of mine, Bruce Tonge, said, really nice, elegant way to put it, is school is not out, it's only different. School is not out, it's only different. And what that means is, keeping, our bodies really work off of routine. So if you end up, sleeping late, then your body is going to be thinking this is a weekend. Or if you allow yourself to go to bed late, then you're going to be preparing your body for sleeping in the next day. Yes. And once you get into that routine that, every day is a weekend or every day is a holiday, it's really difficult to get into the mindset to actually do the home instruction that you have, or to even do some of the other fun things like socializing or being creative. And those things are as important as ever to maintain during these really uncertain times. And so what we know for kids with attendance problems is that those can be very kind of fragile routines to begin with. And so what you want to do is establish a routine as structured as you can, so that you're really giving some sort of expectation of when people will do things. So that includes some of the successful schedules that I've seen include things like chunking schoolwork. Really critical to have defined hours for schoolwork so that it doesn't bleed over into the entire day. Right. And for most of the school-age kids that I've talked to and seen, their school that they've been currently assigned can really fit into a really manageable amount of time, say 3 hours of the day. So really kind of commit to thinking, like, say 9 to 12, your time to do your schoolwork, or 9 to 11, and then a break, and then 1 to 2, but define a school breaks. Beyond that, what you want to do is not just sit down at your desk and expect to do work from like 9 to 5, even if you have work, right? That's just a recipe for disaster, any of us. So schedule in planned breaks for lunch and snacks, and also schedule in and enforce physical or creative activities, right? You need to get the body working, you need to get the mind working, and so these are really important. And it's really challenging for parents, any of the caregivers who are, also now working from home, and most of us who are without caregivers at this time are really having to balance both the needs of our kids as well as work. And so having this schedule, I think, does help give you a little bit of predictability in such an uncertain time. And that can include scheduling in times when your kids can ask questions about their schoolwork. So instead of just having the kids have unfettered access to the caregivers, say, oh, I don't get this one problem, I'm going to go ask mom or dad, to rather list out those problems, to be able to ask their teachers first, and then also be able to kind of compile questions for your parents so that they can ask at specific times, so that it gives you some bit of predictability in terms of when to kind of chunk time and be able to know what they're going to be doing. The trick is that there are large inconsistencies we've already seen in terms of how schools have been responding to this, how they've been organized, as well as the workload. And so even within school, one day a kid could have like a 2-hour workload, and another day they'll have a 7-hour workload.
Right.
And so what I would say is also, look, you schedule this out as a guideline, but also schedule in flexibility, and so that you know that there's going to be some inconsistency, particularly in this beginning when we're just all establishing our new routines.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there's a big message, I would say stay flexible, but also incorporate things that the family and the parents can just accomplish one simple thing each day, so that you know that you feel good about it at the end of the day. And don't expect that you're going to accomplish all of the different goals or stick to the schedule entirely. In particular, I've heard a lot of families who are just frustrated because they have developed schedules, or there's all these expectations about what they're supposed to accomplish. Every parent has become a de facto home instructor.
Yeah.
And then even if they're able to accomplish that and maintain some semblance of work continuity, then at the end of the day, they expect themselves to still kind of create a well-balanced meal at dinner, and also to have like the same kind of enriching exercises at nighttime that they've always endeavored to. Give yourself a break. Allow yourself to be exhausted, and if it means just kind of all like collapsing onto the couch and watching TV, that is allow yourself to do those things now, because this is all new territory for all. And so from all great challenges come great opportunities.
Yes,
and we have to think about that. Another friend of mine mentioned that this is a nice opportunity to realize that the education that our kids are going to learn right now is not just about academics. It's about, there's a lot of life lessons to learn now too. And so for any caregivers who are now put in a place of being the educators for their kids, remember that there are lots of opportunities, not just to help them through their homework, but also to be reflective about their own health, about their own routines, and about their responsibility to community. And this is a wonderful opportunity. And might I just add one last note about that? Now that all of our parents have become like de facto home instructors in New Jersey, at least, and certainly in many other states, my one tip to families, and this is what I always tell parents of kids with anxiety before this, is even when you're helping your kids with homework, your job is not actually to be their school instructor. Your job is to be the parent and their coping coach, right? And so your job is not actually to teach them math or to teach them history or to teach them whatever. It's really to listen, empathize, hear their frustrations, help them identify when they're falling into their traps, both their thinking traps and their acting traps, and then encourage them to use the coping skills that they have to be able to struggle with that assignment themselves. And so if your kid is having trouble with the actual question at hand, just remember that as much as you can, try to have them access their available resources, because those skills will be much more generalizable going forward and more effective in the long run. And so that both, I hope, gives some relief to parents. It takes some pressure off from understanding like math, because now they're teaching math in this whole new way that none of us understand, but also because it gives us something that we can do to set up our kids for success going down the road. So that's why I hope to a helpful reminder for parents, and hopefully that'll take off some pressure, but also refocus their efforts.
That was great advice. Well, Dr. Brian Chu, thank you so much for your time today. It really was a pleasure meeting you virtually, and
absolutely,
after reading about you for so many years.